Well, let's get across the big news stories out of Canberra today. Joining me to do that is Sky's political reporter Cam Reddin. Cam, thanks for joining me. I want to start with the widening rift between the Reserve Bank and the Albanese government. This week we had both the PM and his Treasurer trying to gaslight us into believing Michelle Bullock hadn't suggested government spending was inflationary. Now, we're getting closer to an election, and with the RBA potentially needing to make some tough calls on rates, just how bad do you think this relationship could get?
But what we've seen this week, James, is a fundamental difference in the assessment of where Australia's economy sits today between the Reserve Bank and the government. The Reserve Bank has said in evidence this week and also at Michelle Bullock's press conference that they think the economy is running a little bit hot. In layman's terms, demand is high, supply hasn't quite caught up. They look at the inflation figure, which remains with a 3 in front of it. It's not really coming down as quickly as had been anticipated. They've even put their forecasts out for when they think it will return to the target band, as in it will happen later than they'd originally thought. You then had Jim Chalmers earlier this week saying that he didn't think the economy is running hot. He's pointing to things like growth and economic growth, which is flat. I think it was 0.1% for the March quarter, which is not great at all. So perhaps they both have a point, but maybe are looking at different indicators in how they get to that. In terms of the relationship, you're right. Politically, this is a real tightrope that the government is looking to walk. If inflation's coming down slower or later, well, that's no good in the fact that there's an election within the next 9 months. And the Reserve Bank this week, James, has pretty much put out any hope of a rate cut between now and the next election. If they're going anywhere, they're going up. The next time they meet is in September too, and that's when we'll see the real impact of the income tax cuts flowing through. We'll start to see the impact of any spending around energy bill relief as well. So it's that back end of September when they'll get another chance to move. Of course, with fewer chances under this new restructure of the Reserve Bank, every move is more important. So we'll see what they do, but a rate cut between, I should say, a rate rise between now and the election, that's going to be tough for everyone.
I just thought it was funny how the Prime Minister and the Treasurer, they didn't tell the Reserve Bank Governor she had got it wrong. They just told us that we had heard wrong, which I thought was an interesting manoeuvre. Cam, you've got some exclusive details today about tax breaks the Coalition is considering for the regions ahead of the next election. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I know people's eyes will glaze over when we start talking about zonal taxation, one of the most boring terms ever created in economics. But it is important because this is the first real glimpse we've had at the Coalition's tax policy that it will take to the next election. It's all about reducing the cost of living. What we've revealed today is a plan within the Coalition which isn't yet finalised, hasn't yet been announced, but it's looking at ways of reducing the cost of living in regional areas by expanding tax breaks for people that live outside of major cities. Exactly how many people, we don't yet know. Those details are still being finalised. But Peter Dutton gave a little wink and a nod at this plan that's in the works today. We then did the calls and rung around afterwards to get some more details. This is a little of the framework that Peter Dutton has laid out while he was visiting Mount Isa earlier today.
There are arguments for people who live in regional towns where you're paying more for petrol, you're paying more for your electricity, paying more for housing. There's an additional cost that comes with it. I just think they're all common sense discussions that we should have, and it should include a discussion around whether the current taxation arrangements are fit for purpose.
So the main thing they're looking at, James, is what's known as the zone tax offset. This is basically a tax concession that people can claim. It's a few $100s, around 400,000 people access it every financial year to help with some of the costs of living in an isolated part of Australia where petrol can cost more, housing can cost more, just getting around and doing your day-to-day bits and pieces costs a bit more because of the tyranny of distance. So the Coalition, in developing this tax plan that it will lay out over the weeks and months ahead, is looking at potential tax breaks, either broadening the number of people that are eligible or increasing the amount that can be claimed as a way of essentially providing a bit of extra cost of living help. So that's what we've revealed today. More details are expected to come over the weeks and months ahead. As Parliament returns on Monday, we'll also be keeping a close eye on further details of the nuclear power plan, which we're expecting the Coalition to outline in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting as Parliament returns next week. Cam Reddin, appreciate your time this evening.